Because one of the things that most people will tell you and most people can relate to is even after they've been in class or doing whatever and they know vocabulary and grammar, they still have a hard time putting it together and actually speaking. All right, good day everyone. Class is in session. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time watching, you probably missed the first lecture. I'll have that link in the description below. You can take a quick look whenever you get the chance. It goes about what the course is about, who is it for, who is it not for, who am I, all that sort of thing. Today, for those of you who are up to date, we're going to go ahead and talk about language, communication, and fluency. Now, I will give you this disclaimer. Most of the ideas I will be sharing with you, they're going to feel redundant. They're going to feel as if I'm stating the obvious. I'm doing it on purpose. My objective is to have us be on the same page before we get into the actual Spanish material and to simplify, in a sense, oversimplify the whole concept of language, communication, and fluency. For our purposes, language will be defined in the following way. Language is the innate human ability to generate and arrange sounds into patterns that carry meaning. Okay, and for those of you wondering, yes, I am tall. Language is the innate human ability to generate and arrange sounds into patterns that carry meaning. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, there's a couple of keywords I'm going to highlight and then we're going to expand a little bit on them. Number one, language, innate human ability. It's important. If you've ever thought, for whatever reason, you're not good enough to learn a second language, in this case Spanish, or someone has told you that you're trash and you can't do it, they're wrong and you're wrong. Language is an innate human ability that we all have. I dare you go to a country, any country, go talk to an unfortunate soul who doesn't have a house and lives on the corner of the street, they will be able to speak the language. Similarly, find someone who doesn't know how to read or write, most likely they'll still be able to speak the language. Anywhere across the globe, you will find people that can speak the language. It's an innate ability. It's a gift that we all have. It's something that makes us human. So I would encourage you to step outside of your head and to ignore whatever anybody else has said if you ever thought that you don't have what it takes to learn a language, because you do. Okay? Second point, to generate and arrange sounds. Keyword here, sounds. When we think of language, we think of words, vocabulary, so on and so forth. But what I'm trying to do is go a step below that. Before we define words, we have sounds. Language is nothing more, if you think of language as a whole, it's only a collection of sounds that are unique to that specific language. That's all it is, all right? This oversimplification helps some people when it comes to learning. Instead of getting all frustrated and caught up in all that jargon and terminology that you will encounter once you get into the actual language itself, it helps to take a step back and just think, all you're doing is generating sounds that are specific to the language, and you have the ability and the tools to do that. You have the capacity and you have the infrastructure to generate sound. Okay? Next point. Sounds into patterns that carry meaning. Keyword here is patterns. Just knowing sounds is not enough. Sounds by themselves don't do anything. We have to generate multiple sounds and then string them together into a correct pattern. For example, if I say B, B means nothing. If I say za, it means nothing. But if I generate both of those sounds and I line them up, suddenly it reads pizza. And pizza, because it's a sound or group of sounds in the correct pattern, suddenly they now carry a meaning. When I say pizza, you think of a pizza or a box of pizza, a slice of pizza, or something among those lines. Now, when those two conditions are met, that we generate sounds and we align them into a pattern, then we end up with our last point, which is what will lead us to our next conversation. Meaning, when you have sounds that are sequenced correctly, a message gets delivered. In that case, I said pizza. You have an image of a pizza in your head right now. If I were to break this pattern, if I say zabi for some reason, suddenly it doesn't mean anything anymore because I am not following the correct pattern. Therefore, no message or there's no meaning being carried. You no longer have that image of a pizza. Now it's a zabi. What is it? I don't know. In other words, for language to be what it is, you have to generate sounds that are unique to the language into patterns that are unique to the language. When those two conditions are met, you end up with meaning. Now, the same is true if we change the language. For example, if I say ne, it means nothing to you. If I say ko, it means nothing to you. If I string them and I say ne ko, it still means nothing to you. Why? Because you and I are conversing or communicating in English. English is the playing field that we're both standing on. But if I were to change that playing field and now we're in Japanese, for example, suddenly neko means cat. That sound or that group of sounds are arranged in the correct pattern that is unique to Japanese, and therefore it carries a meaning, and the meaning is cat. Regardless of what language you're dealing with, in our case, we'll eventually be dealing with Spanish. This definition, this concept, this sequence, this pattern remains the same. You have to generate a sound, you have to line it up in a pattern, and if you do it correctly, that gives meaning. Now, this definition is scalable. It doesn't only apply to a word. If I grab two sounds like we did before, pizza, pi and za, that's two syllables. I line them up in the correct pattern, therefore they carry a meaning, which is pizza. I can do the same thing with a big sentence. If I say, I want to eat pizza, you understood that message. What am I doing differently here? Nothing. If you take a step back and think in abstract, that's all you're doing. I'm grabbing a series of sounds. I'm generating a series of sounds that are unique to the English language. If a Japanese person were to listen to this, they would have no idea what I'm saying. So I generate a group of sounds that are unique to the English language, and then I sequence them in the correct order. I want to eat pizza. And because I did that in accordance to the language and its innate rules, there's meaning. You, as a listener, are understanding what I'm saying. In other words, when we talk about patterns, another word for that will be grammar. That's all grammar is. Grammar is a concept that scares a lot of learners because, unfortunately, when you grab a textbook that is about grammar, it tends to be quite heavy as far as the content goes. You have a lot of terminology and information that makes no sense for the average person. If I say to you, this is the direct object of this and this is the complement of that, you don't care about that. Neither do I. You don't need any of that to speak the language. But to simplify the concept of grammar, all that grammar is a bunch of rules, a bunch of collection of how-tos that tells you when you grab or you generate a group of words, this is how you're going to line them up, right? In other words, those rules, it gives us the patterns that are unique to unique to Spanish. And once we have those patterns, we will be able to arrange sounds however we want. And by doing those two things, you will be able to carry meaning. Okay? Now, this definition of language, when done correctly, enables what we call communication. And that is our next topic. In simple terms, communication is the back and forth between two or more individuals that are expressing themselves. But instead of focusing on a definition for communication like we did with language, I want us to focus on the origin of communication, because it will be a core idea to everything that we do later down the road once we get into the actual Spanish content. Okay? So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to flip markers again, and I'm going to write a little stick figure. I'm going to draw a stick figure. And that stick figure represents both males and females, okay? Now, inside of here, there is something that across different cultures is called differently. Some people call it the ghost, some people call it the spirit, the chakra, the soul, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it the you, okay? The thing that makes you, you, or the thing that makes me, me, okay? Because we are human beings in this planet Earth, in this physical realm, we have a couple of things inside of us. We have needs, wants, emotions, ideas, so on and so forth. I'm just gonna cut it to that. All of those things are things that you and I have the innate desire to express ourselves about. Okay? Whenever you're cold, hot, hungry, tired, or you just have a thought, all of that comes from within, from the you, right? The way we bring that forth into the real world is via language, which we already said is a ability to generate and sequence sounds into a pattern that carries meaning. So when we feel any of these things, or we have a thought, we then make use of language as a vehicle or tool to package that thing into a proper box, and then ship that so that another human being can receive the message, right? If I say, I am hungry, that thought gets translated into the sounds, I am hungry, which is patterned in the correct way. And when I send that and I say it, you over there on the other side of the camera, you hear what I'm saying and you decipher it, and you understood my expression. I am feeling hunger right now. You understood that because of the way I generated the sounds and the way I patterned them. Okay? Now, if it's done wrongfully though, it won't go anywhere. For example, if I say I'm hungry and my brain goes and does this, me sleep pizza. That is a group of sounds that is not ordered in the correct pattern. Therefore, you're not going to understand my desire, the thing I'm trying to tell you, which is I am hungry, right? Why am I breaking this down this way, and why does it seem so duh? The reason I'm doing this is because of a principle that I will be using once we get into the whole Spanish curriculum itself. Communication starts with you. The ability for you to speak and converse and communicate, have that back and forth ping pong with someone else, it starts with you. Every thought, I'm gonna term this, all of this, I'm gonna group into thoughts. Okay? All your thoughts have a particular group of sounds and a particular sequence that enables you to deliver 100% of that thought to somebody else. And that right there that I just said is a key aspect for you to learn language, whether it's Spanish with me or whether you're learning it on yourself. That key concept, if you were to really grasp that and understand that, you'll be well off. The curriculum that we'll be presenting as I continue to work on this is based on that idea. For example, if you have the thought of wanting, right? You want something. For you to express that thought, you have to know that word want. Want is the anchor. Want is the key anchor point of that idea. Everything else that can be expressed through that desire of wanting revolves around this word. So what I get to do is I anchor the word. I teach you the word or the equivalent of this that will be in Spanish. Then I'm going to attach the before and the after. There are certain patterns and certain rules that I will be giving you to how to choose what words go here, which ones can go here, and which ones can go here. By doing so, you will have a structure, a skeleton, if you will, that you then will be able to use for yourself to practice the language, learn vocabulary, and practice your expressive capacity, all while staying within a benchmark, if you will, or a defined space so that you get to drill on the information that you have learned. By doing that, you will be practicing what I believe to be one of the most crucial skills for you to eventually become fluent in the language, and that is being able to generate at will. This process, even though it's oversimplified and kind of snapshot in time, this happens instantaneously. When you dominate this and you do that repeatedly, you enter what people call fluency, which is ironically the goal that everybody wants. But it is that process of you initiating the message, not just reacting to what's coming to you, that takes the longest to develop, and it's the thing that gives the most hardship to students. Because one of the things that most people will tell you and most people can relate to is even after they've been in class or doing whatever and they know vocabulary and grammar, they still have a hard time putting it together and actually speaking. That ability of putting it all together, generating the sounds, lining them up in the correct pattern, and uttering those sounds on the spot when prompted, that is the skill that will get you to be fluent eventually. But it takes time, it takes patience, you have to drill on it, and you have to be aware of it. That is the purpose of this. So, now that we have covered the concept of language, and I've vaguely expressed the idea of communication, I'm going to go ahead and talk about fluency, which is the name of the game. That's what everybody wants, okay? I'm going to pause this now because I feel like I've given out quite a bit of information. And then on our next classroom session, we're going to go ahead and talk about fluency, all right? Class is dismissed. Take care.